REMARKETER, empowering realtors.
Good morning, and thank you very much for joining me today. We're going to pick up where we left off 2 weeks ago. We did have a little break last week due to a transition that we are still working on. So I do apologize for missing a week, but here we are and ready to go with another session with REMARKETER Academy. So today I thought it would be a good idea to talk about the Instant CMA feature in REMARKETER. It's a very unique feature within REMARKETER that you can really utilize to your benefit, and not just for the traditional use cases of a CMA. Comparative market analysis is a very common tool and system used by real estate agents in order to be able to verify and qualify properties for certain price points, etc. You're able to compare a certain property, a property of interest, with other similar properties in the neighborhood. Kind of be able to understand the demand and how supply and demand are playing in the immediate area, and be able to arrive at a price, whether you're planning to list a property or if you're planning to place an offer for a certain property. Now, the Instant CMA system that we have in REMARKETER is unique in the sense that it's instant. So you can immediately generate a report that would usually take about at least half an hour to a couple of hours to prepare. Therefore, presenting you with a different use case, presenting you with a different opportunity. Pull this up a little bit in order to be able to use this tool at more instances and more occasions. Sorry about that. All right, so that's what we want to look at. Most of you guys might have already used Instant CMA. I'm going to show you how to use Instant CMA. But the main thing is that I'm going to give you some examples on how you can really utilize this in more occasions where you might have a conversation with clients of yours or prospects of yours, and use this to your benefit. Let's go ahead and share my screen with you. All right, so the CMA tool is right down here, and as we've discussed before, there are two ways for you to generate a CMA: either put in an MLS number or a street address. Let me just explain to you how the search by address system works, and then we're just going to get into the CMA itself and get started with the topic of today. So the two spaces that you have here, one of them is a unit number. So unit number doesn't always have to be filled in. It's not the street number. Street address, starting by street number, will come to this section right here. So unit number only applies when it applies. If you're looking for a condo, or if you're looking for a property that has a unit number, it could be in a community where the street address might be common among several different properties, and some of them might have their own units. In some townhouse cases, for instance, you might be seeing that. But anyways, if the unit number applies, then use the unit number. Otherwise, just use the street address. And the way that it works is that once you put in the street address, let's just select any address here. So if I go to search and let's use one of the properties here. All right, 11 Helen Avenue, for instance. Okay, so what I'll do here is this: 11 Helen. All right. So the way it works is that the system probes the database as you're typing in. So give it a little time so that it can find the options that it can find within the database from previously recorded transactions in the database. So you can see that the property was able to find it, and there are other similar options as well, which might be the ones that you're looking for. So this is how the system would find the property. This would be the subject property for the CMA, and then generate the CMA around that. So once you find the property, just select that and click generate. Now, let's say I was looking for, let's say, number 13, Helen Avenue. All right. So you see that these are the ones that the system was able to find. This property might not necessarily be on the market right now, but the system was able to find a transaction for that property in in the database. So this could be a previously listed well, basically, the property could have been previously listed in MLS, whether for sale or for lease. And this is what the system would require in order to be able to set the parameters of the CMA based on. So that's why we need to have a previously recorded transaction for any property, if we're just randomly selecting a property to generate a CMA for. Now, it happens that sometimes you want to generate a CMA for a property that has not been in the market for many, many decades. So basically, at least in the GTA, when you're looking at sold history, we're going back more than a decade. So if the property hasn't been in the market in any form or way, even an expired listing would be sufficient for the case here. But if it's not been in the market in any form, let's say in the past 20 years, you might not be able to find the property here, and wouldn't be able to really pinpoint the exact same property there. Now, the way that we suggest, the system would obviously require a record, because it needs to know what the property type is, where the location is, what are the all the different dynamics of the property, the size, the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms, the number of garages, the dimensions of the land, all of the different things that would be required in order for the system to be able to find similar properties and then use them in your CMA. That's why we need to have a record available. Now, in a case where you wouldn't be able to find the record specifically for that property, what I would suggest is that you can easily generate the CMA for a similar neighboring property. You don't have to go for that exact same property, but a similar neighboring property, which is, more or less the same. Usually the properties in an immediate neighborhood are very similar to each other, apart from the ones that have been renovated, for instance, etc. You would definitely be able to find a property that's quite similar to that, and you'll still be able to generate the CMA for the property. So that would be a workaround for this rare cases that this would happen. Otherwise, if you find the property, you can simply click generate, and the system is going to generate a CMA for you instantaneously. So this is where we're going to start our conversation today. This is the beauty of this system, which is basically gives you the an instant set of information based on which you can have a discussion with your prospect or with your client. That is the topic of today, the discussion that you're going to have around the property here. All right. So immediately you can see that the CMA is going to give you all the transaction history. So this is the transaction history. It was listed several times in 2003, 2006, 2019, all terminated. So the property had been listed several times in the past, but has never really sold the property. We have the average sales prices of the property here, basically similar properties in the neighborhood. So we're looking at detached properties in that area. And then we have, similar properties, comparable properties, competing properties. These are on the market right now. So the properties in the neighborhood that are in the market right now, and the most recent sold on the same street. So these would be the neighbors, basically. And then we have the schools, the rankings, and the ability for you to generate a PDF report. Okay, now let's present a new opportunity for a discussion using this platform here. So let's imagine that you want to take your client to a showing on for this property right here. So basically, we're going to go for a showing here, and several other properties in the neighborhood that we're going to go ahead and take a look at. And I want to use the CMA system in order to generate insight for me, so that before going into the property, I can have a much more insightful conversation with my client about the property and opportunities that it may arise. So let's go back to CMA. This time, what I'm going to do is, because I have the MLS number, it's much easier to pinpoint the property. I'll just pick the MLS number and generate the CMA. Just like that. So you just put in the MLS number and you're able to generate the CMA. All right. Now, the first set of information that we have is the transaction history. So immediately you're going to be able to see what's been going on with this property. So for the fact, and this property has been in the market for three times already, has been listed in the market March, May, and June 2026. So it's been terminated twice, and it's been newly listed right now. So it was on the market for 1 million, almost 100,000. Then it was reduced in price for 1,025, and now they've decided to move the price point just below the $1 million mark and list the property again. So this basically gives you an idea of what the situation or how willing the sellers might be to negotiate on the price, or have they really been trying to sell the property, and what has been the outcome of the system right now. This would be the first set of conversation that you can have. So immediately from this information, you can see that the property has been in the market for a while, and they have been reducing the price. So this might show how flexible they would be in the price, given the fact that they've already reduced the price about $100,000. So that's about almost, just a bit less than 10% in the price. They might be less and less willing to negotiate on the price. However, the fact that they've been listing it again and again shows the willingness of the buyers to, make a deal and finally sell the property. You can also see that it was last purchased in 2013 for $480,000. So there's a bit of an equity on the property anyway. The next section, sorry about that, let's go back here. The next section tells you the average property sold within the 1 kilometer radius of this property. So you can see that we've got 23 properties sold within 1 kilometer of the subject property, and the average sold price of these 23 properties is $997,000. Now, 23 is a good, healthy number. So there's been quite a few properties sold in such a small radius. So this shows you that the neighborhood that the property is located at could have a high demand, because there's been, given the situation of the market, there's been quite a few transactions made on the system. The average DOM is 23. Again, it's you as a realtor would know how that would rank among properties given the situation of the market. So that seems to be pretty healthy as well. And the average sales price to list price is, just on the dot, so 100%. So we're looking at properties selling at asking prices. So that shows you that the property is located in an area where even though the market, generally speaking, would be a buyer's market, but over here seems that the transactions are, quite a bit healthier than other areas of the GTA, for example, if you're comparing to. So this would be, again, another set of conversation that you're going to have. So we're going section to section, and we're going to see how, what kind of a conversation we can have on each set of these properties. It's important to discuss each one of these sections in the CMA and allow your client to really understand what we're about to walk into and take a look at. So you can see how this conversation can build up the perception and help them have a much better understanding about the property, about the market when they're going to view the property. That's where everything starts to change. That conversation of yours is unique because no other realtor really does that. You usually have this conversation after the fact that you've visited the property and you might be interested in the property, and then you'll be going to evaluate the property and generate a CMA. But here, because it's instantaneous, you could do it right there at the when you're still in the car and parked in front of the property and about to go into the property and take a look at. And before that, you can really have a discussion about the property. And each one of these sections is going to give you the insight that you might want to do. All right, so here again, this would be the kind of information that you can derive from this. If you had like 5 sold properties, then it would be very different. You might even consider changing the radius to include more transactions, because you can't really determine the pull and the demand in the market based on simply 5 recent transactions in the last 90 days. That's 3 months, basically. But 23 is pretty good, especially given the situation in the market here. Now, this is the subject property, and if you want, you can also take a look at the pictures, see how the property looks like, and you can even compare this with other similar properties that have been found in the neighborhood. So you can check out another property here and compare the pictures there, even though this property is not on the market and you're not able to see it because it's already sold, but you're able to compare using the pictures as well. So you can kind of see the other types of properties that are available here. So you can see that this is another property in the neighborhood and how it's been renovated and what was the situation here. Now, what we would be looking at in this next section is the obvious, because this is the similar recently sold comparatives. So these are the properties that are comparable. They're recently sold, and we can start comparing the dynamics of the property. So you can see this one's listed for $999,000. The next one that's pulled over here was listed for $997,000 and sold for $980,000. So this can give me an idea that even at this price point, people have been able to negotiate a little bit lower than the asking price. Not too much, but just a little bit lower than the asking price right there. Now, you can see the next one, which was listed at $899,000 and sold for $878,000. You can immediately go to the rest of the features of the property and find out whether there was a reason why this one was listed less than the other ones here. So, for example, I can immediately see that the the lot size is very different. So these are 25 feet lot sizes. This one's an 18 feet lot size, and therefore it definitely makes sense for the price to be less than that. So this is basically another set of conversation that you're having. So as you're going along and taking a look at these different properties, you can, you can talk about why this would be a good match, why this could be a little bit of a deviation, but you're kind of seeing and getting a feel of all the other sales and transactions in the market as well. So basically, we're comparing the type of the property, we're comparing the style of the property. So, for example, this one over here, which was listed at 650,000 and it's sold at the same asking price, it's a detached, but it's a bungalow. It's not a two-story like these ones. However, the lot size here is uh, uh, much better than the other two that we're looking at. So imagine if you were looking at a property similar to this one listed at about $600,000, you could kind of see the potentials here. So you're paying a lot less, however, you're getting the same land, and there's opportunities obviously for development if that would make sense. So you can kind of see the different topics and the different conversations that might arise from having this information available to you. In a traditional CMA, usually you wouldn't even include a bungalow here, but having that bungalow displayed to you here, which I will show you a little later how you can filter this even further. But having this displayed to you shows you the dynamics of the market. So you can even have a discussion about this fact as well. You know what? That could be an idea. Hey, look at that. If we're interested to purchase a property in this neighborhood, and I'm simply looking to purchase the property and then rent it out, for example, it seems that there are other options for me to look at as well, because at $300,000 less, I can purchase a property which is sitting on a valuable land and most probably will generate the same amount of income for me. See, so depending on the situation of the client or the prospect, basically, having this information available when it's important to talk about it will be a huge value, because these are the kind of things that can arise from the conversation that you're having with your client. So we're looking at all the other options, and then this one here again, which was listed at 939 and sold at 910. The lot size is pretty similar. It's also 2 stories. It's also 3 bedrooms. However, it doesn't have a garage. This one does have a 1.5 garage. So you're able to really compare the different dynamics of the property over here in order to be able to really come at uh, a useful insight on the property. So you can see that this one, in opposed to the other ones that we've seen, is not renovated and older and may require some renovation. So these ones are pretty similar. Maybe the best option to compare it with would be this one, and this so far tells me that the price is right around that neighborhood. So if we want to really place an offer here, I would be maybe considering a little bit of wiggle room. However, given the fact that there is demand here, we might not really burn our um, opportunity if this is really something that I'm interested in. So you see, when you have that information beforehand, when you walk in, you have a much better understanding of what you're looking at. And that is crucial in real estate. It's very different than walking into a property and just looking at the cabinets and the flooring and I don't know, the backyard without having proper insight on the property. When you have that insight, you know what you're comparing it with. What are the other things, So if I'm looking at the renovations done in that property, I have already taken a look at at least the pictures of another similar property in the neighborhood and kind of seen the qualities of that renovation job that's been done, obviously, here as well. So I can compare the property that I'm walking into right now with other similar properties out there. All right. So that's another set of information available for me here. Now, let's say, for instance, I want to compare only properties that are 3 bedrooms. So I don't even want to see a 2-bedroom property right here. What I can do is that I can come up here and I can select more of the style, basically filters to match more of the features that we have here. So for instance, I want to make sure that the number of bedrooms is similar to the number of bedrooms that I have here. So now they are all 3 suites. So you see that 2-bedroom one has been swapped out and a 3-bedroom one has come back. Now, however, the transaction here is a little bit older, obviously. So this is the give and take. I'm making it more similar. Instead, I'm looking at older transactions. In real estate, in my opinion, most recent transactions are much more important than similarity in features. So you want to see how the situation of the market is evolving now. So rather than comparing to a very similar property that sold 6 months ago, it's much better to look at a property that's somewhat similar but sold yesterday. So this is way more valuable to look at and compare to versus that other ones. These are, again, the biases that in realtor-generated CMAs you might come across. So because you've already set the filter at 3 bedrooms, you will not see part of the transactions that might make better sense for you to compare with today. Rather than that. However, in this system, you are able to look at the information generated by the system and then filter furthermore and take it further. So you can see that this one in May 26th, 2026, basically sold for $1 million. So this one so far is the record holder, and you can kind of go ahead and take a look at the property and see probably why. The size, the features, the finishings, etc. So that is the kind of discussion that you can have right here. Let's go back and take that check mark off again. So it would be good to compare each one of these properties and be able to have a conversation about, which one are we really considering as the best match to compare this property with? And, what are the other options pretty much in the market? Now, the next section is the competing properties. So these are properties that are similar and available, still not sold. So you can see that competing properties, these are 4 competing properties. These are all 2-story detached properties. We've got different lot sizes, 18, 17, 18, and then 25. And you can see that these properties would mostly fall within the range of this one right here. So you can see that this one sold for $878 on June 11th. So $878,000. And these are kind of competing with the same one, except for this one, which is listed for $1,150,000. You can then do a CMA for this one and kind of see what's going on with this property as well. You can easily see the pictures as well. I don't see anything specific. It could be that they are at the beginning of their journey. They've listed at that price, and now it's their turn to get terminated and then list again and then come back to their senses, maybe. I don't know. So, but that's something that you can also check. So you can kind of see the outliers in the market as well. But the rest of the story is consistent. You can see that these are pretty much competing in that price range, which is in line with this property which sold on June 11th right here. So that kind of shows you the competition. However, the lot size for this property that I'm going to view right now is bigger than all the other competition that are available right now, except for this one here. So this one could be competing. However, it doesn't seem this one to be renovated. No, it's not renovated. So you see, now the conversation would be this. This is an interesting one, in fact. So I'm looking at pretty much the same thing. However, we don't have 3 bedrooms here. This is 2 bedrooms. It's a smaller one at $829,000. So at about $80,000 less, maybe I can offer this one at 800,000, get it at 800,000, for instance. Again, you could do the CMA for this one as well. I'll show that to you right away. But I want to compare this to this. Should I buy this, which is renovated, and pay almost $1 million? Or should I buy this and renovate it myself? That's another conversation that you can have right now. You can kind of see that, for example, here, with the same lot size pretty much, you can pay less and get a property that you can renovate yourself. Now, how much would the renovation cost? That's another thing to discuss and see. Okay, so for example, let's say the renovation would cost $300,000, then obviously it would make sense to go here and buy something that's already renovated if I like the renovations there, for example. So you see, that's another conversation that comes up right now. So when I'm going to walk into this property, I also have another idea as well. So there are options in this neighborhood for me to buy properties at around $100,000 less and be able to renovate it myself. So that's, again, another option here for me. So when I walk into that property, I also know that I do have other options too. So I can kind of weigh my options there. So that's again, you see the power that an instant CMA provides you. You have that information available to you at that time. So we're, again, having a conversation on competing properties. The next section is the same street. So these are all on the same street and pretty much the neighbors right there. And I can kind of, while we're there, we can also take a look at all the other properties. And these ones appear to be renovated properties in a different corner of the street. So, this would give us some insight into the opportunities. You can see that these properties have been all sold many years ago during the heat of the market. So that's another conversation. So when the market picks up, these are the numbers that most probably we would be looking at for that kind of a property. So again, I'm able to kind of see, how much did this neighbor sell for? How much did that neighbor sell for? So these are from, back in 2018, for example. And usually this is pretty far apart, but if a property has sold a year ago, homeowners would have their expectations set at that. They would know what their neighbors sold for, and they want to be able to sell for at least the same amount, if not more. That's usually the expectation of a homeowner, which might not match the realities in the market. And with this, we're able to kind of lay the groundwork in terms of, what would be the expectation of the owner here, how much of a fight we have to put in order to be able to negotiate, if at all, and, so on and so forth. So these are, the kind of conversation that you're going to have around this report right here. Finally, you have the schools nearby, and you can see that the schools are kind of, mediocre here in this neighborhood. So it's not a hugely popular neighborhood if it were just for schools, but the location seems to be a pretty you know, good location in terms of demand there, close to Eglinton and Dufferin. So yeah, it's a nice midtown neighborhood, pretty much. Okay, so that's that. Now, the next thing that I want to do is pretty simple. Let's say, for example, this is something that might be of interest for you. So you want to find out more about this property. Now, that conversation that we had about renovations, let's evaluate that opportunity. So what I'll do is that I'll just copy this uh, MLS number, go back to CMA, paste it in, and generate the CMA, just like that. Boom. And I have a CMA now generated for this. Now I want to take a look at what's going on here. So this property had been in the market in 2021 and 2019, so it's just been listed in the market. That shows me that there could be some opportunity for me to even get this price a little bit lower than what they are, because it's the first time that they're listing right now. Or I can wait a little bit on this listing as well. Again, I can go ahead and compete. So basically right now we're looking at 3 bedrooms here. So these are the 2 other properties that we'd already looked at. If I want to match the number of bedrooms, I can match the number of bedrooms. Other 2 bedrooms have sold at 828, 649, 710, and 748. So again, I can see that May, and June. There is some room in order for me to negotiate here, apparently. So I can do my calculations and see, for instance, if the renovations that I like is going to take about $150,000. And if I can get this at $750,000, that's going to land me right at the $1 million, at the $900,000 point, where it would be a little bit cheaper than the renovated ones, but I can get what I like. So that would be a viable option then. So I might consider this one. This one came out of nowhere, right? So it wasn't even on my radar, but now it might be a viable option for me to even consider and go take a look at and place an offer for. So you can see, having these conversations for every one of the properties that you're listing, you're viewing, is going to give you a much more fruitful, conversation with your clients, and you have been able to help them firstly understand what they're looking at, the dynamics of the market that they're searching in, as well as present them with new opportunities and new points of comparison. So it's very important for the client to have a point of comparison when they're looking at every individual property, so they know what they're comparing with. They know if they're looking at a better property, generally speaking, than recently sold properties in the area, or they're looking at a worse property, or it's just the average thing. So they need to be able to have a point of reference when they're looking at properties, and this tool can give you exactly that. All right, so this was one occasion where I wanted to discuss today, showings, and you having this kind of a discussion for each one of the properties that you're looking at with your client, and giving you an example on how this kind of a conversation can not only picture the property, but also give your client a much better understanding when it matters and where it matters. And this would definitely elevate the level of service that you're providing to your clients in this situation. So it's a very, very important tool for you to master and use more frequently. All right. Let's get the questions here. So thank you for your question, Brian, and thank you very much for being with us. So we used to get a box with the estimated value based on HPI. Yes, correct. So that was there, and thank you for mentioning that. We do have the HBI value right here, as well as the AI estimate. So those are the two things that would be there. So basically here, based on the properties that we have, you can still get the AI estimate. The HPI estimate will come back on. We're just in a phase of transition. I don't know if I mentioned this last week or not, but basically we have a new version of REMARKETER getting launched soon. So knock on wood, that's coming up pretty soon. And we're right now in a phase of transition, and we're reforming that function. So therefore, it's not popping up, but it should be back up in a couple of days. So basically, what that does is it looks at the last transaction, and it adjusts the price based on the date of sale to today. So basically, it looks at all the price fluctuations since, let's say, September 2025, and applies that to the last sale price and gives you an HPI estimate. So thank you for bringing that up. It will definitely be back up, in any one of these days as we're transitioning into the other one. So what happens right now is that we are using, we're transferring all the data into the new system, and therefore we do have some flickerings in the functions, the different functions of the system. So I do apologize for that, but it's all for a better cause. We're coming up with a much more advanced and capable platform soon. So look out for that announcement to come around soon. All right. So thanks again, Brian. It was an important piece that needed to be mentioned. All right, so this is it. I hope this session was informative for you. The CMA function is very flexible and very useful tool that you can have alongside with you. It's also accessible on the app, on the mobile app, so you could even use it on the mobile app. So it's something that you can always pull out and use in your conversations with your clients and prospects, and be able to have a much better give them a much better understanding of what you already know as a professional, giving comparables and points of references. Once again, thank you very much for staying with me today. I hope you enjoyed the rest of your day, and I'll see you again next week with a different topic. Have a good one.